All right. GM Vietnam, everyone. How's everyone feeling about Vietnam? I think I will take that as a good. Yeah. Really excited to be here today to have a conversation around DeFi, onboarding the masses. We have a very amazing lineup of panel, and today we're just going to explore how we're going to move, DeFi being used by millions of crypto native users, and then to those who are billion of users who are not even aware of it yet, right? So maybe we'll just start with like a quick round of introduction. I'll go first. So I'm Shawn from Alchemy. I lead the APAC initiatives here. So mainly we kind of have one goal to give developers and teams the right tools to build on-chain products and kind of scale more effectively. Maybe Jason, you want to...
Hey, I'm Jason, founder and CEO of Onchain Labs. We essentially build on-chain payment infrastructure. One of the first kind of use case that we've built on our protocol is the Onchain Ramp. And that effectively lets you buy assets directly on chain, skipping the need to effectively buy gas from a custodial ramp or a centralized exchange, figuring out the on-chain part. So you can go skipping all of that middleman journey and go on your favorite project's website and buy the asset directly from them.
Hi, I'm C.J, Developer Relations at Kadena. If you haven't heard of us, I hope you have. We've been around for about 6 years now. We're a proof of work, scalable layer one. We're here in Vietnam looking for interested builders and protocols. We have a big grant program that might have been a trend. So if you are a builder or a protocol looking to find a new chain to deploy on, then please chat to me about it. We're really interested in talking to EVM builders. We've just launched our new EVM chains, 5 of them, very recently. So yeah, please talk to me afterwards.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniel, head of DeFi at Katana. Katana is a DeFi-specific L2 co-founded by Polygon Labs and GSR. So we just launched around 7-8 weeks ago, currently at 400 million TVL. We're looking for builders to come and join us. Katana is basically an ecosystem that focuses a lot more on like what we call an onion build-out. So we work with specific DeFi primitives such as a borrow and lend, a DEX, a perp DEX, as well as a launchpad. And we kind of focus all of our efforts on applications that are composable on top of these applications themselves. So thanks for having me today.
Hello everyone, I'm Josephine Nguyen, I'm Vietnamese. So xin chào mọi người ạ. So I'm the lead of TON in South Asia and Southeast Asia. It's my pleasure to be here, and I want to say thanks to Shawn for being moderator here today, and also to Daniel and the team from Hack Season. Thanks so much for having me here today. So TON, the open network, is very well known, layer one, I believe, and we're using the technology developed by Telegram. And Telegram is the only Web3 super app with over 1 billion global users. And I'm here at GM Vietnam, especially at this event today, to have a chance to meet up with more potential partners, networks, and to onboard more projects and developers to TON network. Thanks so much.
Right, solid introduction, guys. I guess we can just dive right into the topic of today. I think really we want to let the people here know what does it really mean to kind of onboard the mass users, right? So I think the first question I have is what does onboarding the mass users mean for DeFi, and why is it scaling so essential for its future? I mean, maybe I can have some of my views I'd like to share as well. So at Alchemy, we kind of see teams interpret mass adoption very differently. It goes from like UX, it goes from like wallets, yields, and stuff like that. So just want to hear from you guys. What do you think? Maybe anyone can just take it away.
Sure. Well, ultimately, you guys are part of the solution, of course. But if any of you, at the end of the day, have transacted on chain before, meaning bought something from a decentralized exchange, you know that the learning curve is really, really high. So in that case, you need a lot of service providers like Alchemy or gas abstractors like Pimlico, et cetera, to come into the space and effectively offer these building blocks so that at the app layer, we can start building those fully kind of abstracting experiences for the end users so that you don't have to learn what we've had to learn. And I think that's kind of the major hurdle here, is that right now we're trying to teach people to effectively trade on-chain in the hard way. And I think what's about to happen with players like, what we're doing, service providers like Alchemy and others, we're going to be able to have more and more services at the app layer that enable directly kind of this direct onboarding to on-chain. Tan is also very much on-chain first, and obviously I'm sure Katana, pretty DeFi first team. So I think this is kind of the situation right now. We've gone this far, we've gotten this far through centralized experiences, which centralized exchanges, custodial ramps that are effectively a reseller model. Now we need to go, on-chain first.
Yeah, I agree. And to that point, abstracting away that complexity is going to be so important. I do have a kind of an opinion of my own that maybe the users will onboard themselves. Right? I think Kenny had a really good point earlier when he was talking about Aave, and he was saying, who's lent money to people before in the past? DeFi provides that opportunity, and it cannot be ignored. And I think one thing we have in common here, whatever nation state you might be from, is that we are part of the fastest growing economy globally, which is the cyber economy. And the opportunities that provides, I just don't think will be ignored. Okay, that doesn't mean that the onus shouldn't be on us as educators, builders, developers to help ease the friction and kind of abstract away the complexity. And yep, service providers, we have a role to play. But I think that users will onboard themselves, really. This is, I think that's going to be the future.
Sorry, do I mind interrupting a bit? Guess if your guys are standing at the back and you're just chatting, maybe you can bring the conversations outside, because there are actually people here that want to actually listen to the panel. So I would appreciate if everyone can just be quiet and pay give some love to our panelists today. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah.
Cool. I think in terms of DeFi, what we are seeing right now is a rise of isolated vaults in general within the space itself. So if you guys look at Aave itself, right, that's commingling of borrow and lend. Like a user can put in margin. Let's say I put in USDC, I can borrow, wrap ETH out, for example, on Mainnet. Right now, when you see the space that's moving towards the institutional side, they are demanding a lot more secure and singular vaults than by themselves. So you see a rise of vault curation in morpho vaults, for example, even Euler to a lesser extent, and that allows you to onboard a lot of assets. For example, tokenized money market funds, we're trying to solve that their hurdle rate is very low, 4%. How can you bring them on chain and make the asset palatable to vault curators? At the same time, you have assets coming that are 9, 12% within specific vaults themselves, and you actually have demand coming from risk managers and vault curators pushing those assets. I think that's one piece of DeFi that a lot of people don't actually see, because if you're a retail user, you don't actually cross into that space itself. So I think that's growing really huge. Actually, you see a lot of institutional, mostly on the sell side, kind of deploying the capital on chain via that route. Actually, yeah.
Nice. How about you, Josephine?
Okay, so we're talking about the max, bring more access to DeFi, right? Okay, it's very cool question. Actually, it's very related to Tan, because we are pretty famous for onboard a big number of users, right? So like I mentioned just now, Telegram is the only Web3 native super app with over 1 billion global users. So just want to tell a little bit data. Only by last year, through the Telegram mini apps, we already onboard 40% of Telegram users at that time. I think it's around 350 million people, if not wrong, to Telegram mini apps. So I believe that to onboard the number of users, the first thing is for us, at the technology that we are doing at our Tan network, we focus at simplicity, speed, and scalability. So everybody now, when we integrate with our wallet, where we have over 130 million users on our Ton wallet. They basically can send, receive, stack, everything they can do by just few click or one click on Telegram. So you're talking about the simplicity here, which is very important, I believe, especially for the region where I'm handling in South Asia and Southeast Asia, where is, you know, the huge plum and is always in the top ranking around the world as the, you know, the biggest adoption region in blockchain and cryptocurrency. The simplify is very important, especially when the people, they basically, you can see that Telegram is very, you know, popular social media app, chat app for many blockchain and cryptocurrency users in Southeast Asia and South India as well. First of all, is, you know, highlights at a decentralized is very OG mindset, but I think at the same time it's also about the convenience. So the simplify here is very important to help us to onboard and make people, you know, seeing that the reason why they should, you know, be in touch more with Telegram and with Ton network, because they can do everything by just few click on Telegram. Beside that, I think one of the recipe by my own experience that I can see from here is education. What means like a lot of people, like they in OG, they really understand about DeFi app and everything like that. But when you're talking about the max adoption, you were seeing that only in Vietnam, if I'm not wrong, around 20 million people already in somehow have a chance to integrate with cryptocurrency and blockchain. But what kind of integration over there? So are they really know what they're doing, or they really know what kind of DeFi, right? Because everybody have only the mindset of like, okay, this is decentralized finance, but how can you really can get benefits out of it, you know, in the, you know, daily use, basic and everything like that. So I think education is very important, especially in the region where I'm handling, because people easily influenced by the number of the community leaders or KOLs that guiding them the information. So I think combined between technology, you know, with the solution like what we're having, and then with the education base, it may be, you know, the recipe in order to onboard the number of users.
Right. Josephine, you spoke a lot about, you know, decentralization, right? So I guess like one tension that always happens when people talk about scaling is decentralization. So, I mean, most people these days don't really care about decentralization. I'm not sure what you guys think about it, but they just want things to work. And I guess this kind of leads to my next question for everyone is, you know, whether is decentralization something users need to understand, or is it something that they should just benefit from without knowing? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's a key component, but I don't think this is, you know, something that you're going to see one day on a billboard that's going to say, you know, this service is decentralized. You know, I don't think this is a feature that will attract people. But I think it's a key component of the underlying infrastructure, because we've seen that on the other side of the aisle that are centralized, that there's key problems with it, either from the custodial side of it or from the security part of it, etc. So I do think that the upside of decentralization, you know, will attract people, but I don't think this is something, you know, we're going to start doing marketing campaigns on, and that's going to be a key driver for having people coming in. So ultimately, at the end of the day, whether it's a Aave service or you know, a Ton app or whatnot, it's not essentially about decentralization, but decentralization matters.
Yeah, I think, I mean, to me, obviously, decentralization matters. I think there's two different types of users. There are you know, smart contract maxis like me. There are other users that just want to be in DeFi and have the benefits of decentralization without really understanding it. And why should they really? You know, if you're a participant in DeFi and you are a regular retail user, you want to get on with what you're doing in day-to-day life. You don't need to know the politics behind decentralization. I would say, if you do, you might be a stickier user. I mean, for me, you know, the way I got into smart contract development, you kind of have to be a smart contract and decentralization maxi. You know, I always have a story. We've been going to a lot of BTC events recently, and you see kind of orange-pilled BTC maxis everywhere. And I think they miss the point in some respects because they see BTC as digital gold and they see it as a commodity away from nation state power, but they kind of miss the point with trustless execution and trustless smart contracts, which to me is the most important factor in all of Web3. It's the fact that you can have these agreements without a centralized party that get in the way. You know, I've kind of a villain origin story with this, but my dad was a firefighter for 30 years in London. And just before he retired, he got a letter from his pension provider, a centralized party, and they said, oh, you're going to have to work 3 years longer and you're going to get a less of a payout at the end of your career. So, you know, this agreement was signed 20 years ago, and the centralized third party was the UK government. So it just goes to show that if you're trusting these centralized third parties, that whoever they are, no matter how secure you think they are, they're not as secure as code. Code is law, and if you've got a smart contract, then you know, that's the kind of stuff can't happen. So you know, for me, that's the main thing. Decentralization is the main thing, but I'm not naive to the fact that the average retail DeFi user might not care about that, and perhaps they shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, my train of thought on this is quite simple. So when you have users coming into the space, like let's say 5-6 years ago, the amount of content that a user has to learn and stuff that they have to learn is like much like smaller. So like an average end user can actually delve into like protocol stuff, right? Like decentralization, potentially running their own nodes even and giving it a try, right? Maybe not full nodes, but maybe like a kind of like prune node or something. But right now, you don't really hear this because when users come into the space, they're coming in for a specific thing. So for example, I'm a consumer, or I'm here for gaming, or I'm here for DeFi, essentially. Like it's gonna take a lot for them to extend down to actually learning why decentralization is important. So it's kind of like a manifestation of what, like, you know, in the past where we were drawing those network architecture diagrams, like we'll say like protocols like the decentralized protocol is at the lower level and then the end users sit at the super high level. I think we see that being manifested. We can't expect end users to learn every single thing under the sun that when it comes to Web3 because they just practically cannot. And also because newer users don't actually have to go through the gauntlet of learning any of those things anymore, that it's kind of one of those things that it's out of sight, out of mind. Actually, that's what I noticed. A lot of times when we take this approach and we were looking at it from a Polygon Katana point of view, right? We realized that there were also downsides when it comes to decentralization. Not at a protocol level. Protocol decentralization is completely fine, but you look at how DAOs were acting, for example. DAOs, when it's like coming down to voting and governance, as for example, it gets like super messy. Nobody wants to actually lead it. Like we see a lot of like issues from the business side. And I do see like a trend towards like, hey, we just need a decision maker here. We just want to move things forward. We just want to push the growth. And this is what is happening in 2025.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of our, other speakers over here. And what I can say here is, I think maybe I should share a little bit about, related to community growth and stuff related to decentralized. So I'm not sure if you guys remember, but I believe that when we were a kid or teenager, a lot of teachers or parents talking about the, global citizen, talking about flat world, right? And then when we starting to have Bitcoin, like how many years? 16 years, 17 years ago, and now we're coming to this journey. The decentralization, the decentralized term has been in this market, I think, very popular already for 6 or 7 years, right? But the number of people who really understand it and who really know what it is that many? So that's very important. I believe that, like people always talking about Web3, especially for the the fast growth countries like South or Southeast Asia. People talk too much about how to make money, but they don't talk too much about the right term and then how the people can be long term involved in it in different careers that they are at. So I think that this decentralized here is very important that the people, they should know what it is. And if they are at that position, let's say the developers, how they can apply it into, let's say, doing their products increase the security over there, or engage more into that to the potential markets that we aim to, or for the people else who are just basically users and try to make money out of this market. It's very important on what kind of product is really decentralized, what decentralized is meaning here, so they know what the best option they should use to help them to engage more with this industry, but also make money and protect their assets as well. So yeah.
I just have maybe a good way of synthesizing kind of your question is, I don't know if any of you have read the book Start With Why, Simon Sinek, but effectively kind of the decentralization part of everything sits in kind of the what and the how with the infrastructure, and the why, that's how we're going to get people. Things like own your money, financial empowerment. That's what will drive the adoption of decentralization. That's why people will care. We're not going to care about how it's done and the what part of it, but they'll care deeply about the why.
Yes, correct. I totally agree.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing everyone's perspective on like how you approach decentralization. I think we are really short on time because it's a really short panel, but I would like to dive deeper as well into like what you guys are most excited about in your project. I think maybe I'll kick it off with like Jason. We spoke a lot on like decentralization, removing friction on chain, and on kind of like the flow of onboarding the mass users into crypto, right? So what do you think, in your opinion, is kind of still broken in the entire, on-chain flow that most people don't understand while building in, DeFi or whether it's like in Web3 in general? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, this is a good question. So at the end of the day, I think what we're seeing is that there's a lot of effort that's being done in kind of silos, and a lot of these vertical stacks are becoming better and better and better. But the relationship between these vertical silos is still quite absent. So let's say you enter one of those ecosystems, whether it's a Ton ecosystem or what you guys are building or a Katana. The problem is you can't just live in one place, because these basic ecosystems, they're like countries. And if you think about in a world where there shouldn't be borders, we're kind of seeing more and more borders in the blockchain space. So if I'm living in one place, I'm creating value and I'm building my business over here, and all my liquidity and all my value is here, how do I use it and leverage it to interact with other ecosystems? So the piece that, in my opinion, is still missing, and because everyone's kind of preaching for their own choir, we're not building a blockchain at Onchain Lab. We're not building an L2, or we're trying to focus on how can we create the VisaNet of basically blockchain. And what does that mean? It means that prior to VisaNet, there wasn't a way to do the currency conversion at the point of sale. And that meant that you need to stop at the airport and do currency conversion to get ready to transact in this new country that you were going in. So I think that in a world where there's going to be more L2s and more assets and L3s and app chains and all of those things, someone needs to be working on that interoperability kind of middle layer to abstract this traveling of people in between all of these ecosystems. So I think it's not because for lack of they don't understand, and what I mean by they is, some of the people, actually the three people that are next to me, and they're doing right by their vision and their focus from a vertical standpoint, but from the end user's perspective, it's an absolute, shit show. It's still very hard. You transact on one chain, you exit that chain, you basically get to a stable coin like we were speaking before, and you end up having all of this fragmented liquidity as an end user on all these different chains, and you can't bring this all together and do one purchase on one chain. It's just really, really bad. So from a verticalized standpoint, I think it's great. But from an interoperability, interacting with diverse ecosystem, we're still very, very much not there.
Right. Thanks for that. Yeah. So I guess like CJ, I really want to ask you, right? Like, because you work a lot with developers, I'm sure, right? So what are some, common pain points that you see when developers want to build something on chain?
Yeah, I think to your point as well, Jason, that there's an element of users where they switch chains. If you're a DeFi user, but that applies to developers too. And we see developers come across from whether they've already deployed on Base or on Optimism, and really for us it's about minimizing that friction for them to come and deploy with us. And we've done a lot of work in that respect. We've got brand new developer portal up, because at any point of friction along that journey, if they want to come and build with us, they can just go somewhere else. As you said, Jason, there's fragmented liquidity. There's multiple layer ones and layer twos that these guys can build on. So what makes us the chain for them? And I think if you can make their transition easier and listen to them and have the infra set up already. I mean, Alchemy, you guys do such a good job with the best of the best of RPC providing, and even Alchemy University is a platform I would recommend if there's any developers in the crowd, Web 2, looking to transition to Web 3. You've got some great transition from JavaScript onto Solidity there. I love that, really good. So yeah, I mean, a little bit of background on us as well. Our existing, as a layer one, our existing chains were written in our own nascent smart contract programming language called Pact. Based on Haskell. So that was a struggle. We have our own portal, a little bit like Alchemy University, to kind of teach developers and hold them step by step through learning Pact and deploying with Pact. But the exciting thing today is that we're EVM compatible now with our 5 new EVM chains, and just kind of making that transition for a developer so frictionless. Having the setups that they're used to. Now we can have Hard Hat. We've just got a brand new Hard Hat plugin that we've developed. Foundry. If anyone's a Foundry developer here, we'll have that by next week. And kind of even the scaffolding and around someone building a dApp. If a developer can come on, clone a repo, and have a front end set up, have great RPCs, default RPCs plugged in, just be able to get on chain as quick as possible, and then afterwards you can do the shill of, okay, this is our consensus mechanism, this is why we're better. We can do that afterwards, but just getting them on board quickly and listening to them as well, because we've had a lot of people building with us, and they'll ask us questions like, is Chainlink automation deployed yet, or we need certain infra in the back end, and writing that down and going, okay, cool, we can put that in place for you. But Alchemy, great job.
Thanks. It's amazing to hear from you how infra decisions can actually impact how someone build on chain, right? So we basically want to give the best tools to developers, to teams, to scale more effectively. And I think, Daniel, I have a question for you. You spoke a lot about DeFi being open-oriented. Just curious, what is this concept that you always been referring to, the DeFi mullet concept? Maybe you can share a bit of what you think, how it's gonna shape onboarding users into on chain or DeFi in specific.
Yeah, I mean, on this front, I can share a little bit. So before I took on the role as head of DeFi at Katana, I was head of DeFi at Polygon, actually still am. But the general idea is that if you go to DeFi Llama and you open up DeFi Llama for Polygon, you would see 450 applications, the 450 DeFi apps. Okay, this is it's kind of a remnant of DeFi Summer from back then, and what Polygon did from payments, RWAs, and everything. There are still a lot of people that will just select Polygon because of Polygon. And it's very interesting because even though Polygon's doing well when it comes to the B2B side of everything, you don't hear Polygon being number one for anything now. For example, if you want to store, if you want to host tables on the chain, you're probably going to hold it on L1, which is mainnet Ethereum basically. And then if you are looking at other things like gaming, you kind of see how for example, Ronin's doing much better on their front, the XC guys and stuff like that. So the general idea was that when the DeFi team came together within Polygon, we were thinking how can we actually create an environment where users want to use DeFi yet have a much easier time at actually using DeFi without even knowing that they are using DeFi. So we kind of launched Katana with the main objective of doing two things. Number one, we want to help applications that are building on Katana, only DeFi applications that are building on Katana be successful, right? So to that end, we basically go with bring our own opinions as to how we want things to work. In fact, right, even though the chain is permissionless, we actively tell apps and infrastructure partners that if we don't want them to come, we just tell them that, hey, I don't want you to come because I want to create the best user experience for my users on my chain. And the general idea is that like the users should have like a very coherent flow as to the apps and solution providers that they're actually using. So this is how we bring an opinion. And when we bring an opinion, right, it also allows us to not be so scattered in our focus. And we can actually pump all of our resources behind the partners that we actually want. So for example, Sushi is our main DEX, right? And we are only like 7 weeks old as Katana, but Sushi has already crossed $100 million in TVL. And we didn't do any like LP deals or anything. It's just actually native flow that we funneled in through because we were actually selecting specific partners that we want for the chain itself. And that's how we believe that DeFi is gonna move towards the next phase. Because you see like in the space right now, there are very, very big providers already. You see like Uniswap, you see Aave, and they're only growing bigger and bigger because right now we are moving into a phase that's like DeFi's maturity phase, and the leaders are only going to get bigger. So if you don't bring opinions as to how you want to build things, you will just languish along. Maybe you have 100, 200 million TVL, and then when the next bear market hits, you have no revenue, and then your DeFi debt goes bankrupt again, and then your whole ecosystem have to restart again. And we saw that during 3AC basically. So opinions are pretty important.
Right. Thanks, Daniel, for sharing. Guys at the back, do you mind just lowering down your volumes a little bit because it's really hard to hear what the panelists are speaking. So I would appreciate if you can bring the discussion outside, or just pay a little bit, show a little bit of love to our panelists. Thank you. Josephine, I think I have one last question for you, right? So you've been working, growing the region in SSEA. So I'm just curious from your perspective, what has been like the most effective in driving adoption, not just in DeFi but in Web3 in general. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for your question. So maybe I will start to first talking about, some achievements and also some updates about Tan related to DeFi. And then I move to Telegram Access, which is like, the hot trend on Tan right now. So we just officially launched Telegram wallet in US market. That's allow for, around 87 million user base that we had over there to, buy, send, and receive Toncoin and USDT on Ton over there. So actually, it also will have to, bring the adoption into crypto and DeFi for the users, for the large user base in US. And I believe that we are the first self-custodial crypto wallet that integrated, that going through the social media app that officially launched in US. What it means, I've been mentioning a little bit about simplify DeFi just now. Like everybody who use Telegram, they can easily buy, sell, receive, stake, and do a lot of like DeFi features on Telegram to our wallet. So it means a lot to us because, DeFi is always the backbone of this industry. When everyone talking about, different verticals, I believe that DeFi will be the only one that always with us for, all the times. So why? Because it is decentralized finance. So it's just that simple, right? But it's true because it's the best way when you always, talking about finance, you're talking about money. That's attract a lot of attention and it attract a lot of like the people integrate with you, and especially at our experience when we make it more simple for people to access to DeFi product. And I believe that is the new wave that, really to onboard the people. Beside that, like I already mentioned, education is very important. Education from, through where? Of course, to the popular social medias or through, the influencers, to the crypto, leaders. Because I really need their support to really talk more and help the, the people, especially the new wave of users from the Web 2 to Web 3 to understand more about this industry, to understand more about available DeFi products, especially on us. So beside that, I also want to mention a little bit related to what is a hot trend right now on Ton, because I have been receiving a lot of questions like after tap game and mini apps, what's going on with Ton, right? So just want to give you some numbers. So in the past few months, we successfully do, the launching and also create a hype for Telegram assets. I'm talking about gifts and stickers here. So a few weeks ago, Snoop Dogg gift collection got sold out $12 million in just only 30 minutes. And for the gift TVL right now, I think the market cap that we have is over 200 million, and we have over 300,000 active traders. And the ALF trading volume is around 10 million US dollars. So I think that is significant, growth number. And I believe that is people now all around the world, some people already starting to talking about, hey, I want to do some sticker collection on Ton. Can you help me? Because recently I received a lot of requests to doing that. Like I have, some famous IP in Japan, in Europe, in Southeast Asia. Can you help me to do that? I think yes, because sticker is still at just starting. Because if you guys really interesting to know more about that and also want to engage more into the Telegram access, I believe I'm here to help to answer all the questions that you guys having. And data never lies. So we already have been achieving some big numbers, and we hope to see more projects into that verticals on Ton, one of the top 5 vertical on Ton. So yeah.
Nice. It's really exciting to hear like different insights of like, decentralization, how we create a kind of seamless experience onboarding users into crypto. And, education definitely is very important as well, giving them the right information. And from a developer's perspective, using the right infra to scale, that's also very important, right? So we're a little bit short on time. I'd like to wrap this up by, just asking one last question. For everyone here, what is one advice you would like to give the audience or anyone building in on-chain in general? What should they be, look out for, or like, should they consider, right, when building on-chain?
Well, I mean, we're very much focused on the retail side. So my advice would be for people in general, and it's hard to give advice to people in this room because I feel you're at the forefront of everything. You've already kind of made the first step of being here, so I feel you're way ahead of most people. But at the end of the day, and I'm sure you're already doing it, it's just to keep trying. The best way to learn is not to spend 4 hours on YouTube and to learn that way. I mean, of course, part of the knowledge is there, but from my own journey. You just have to set kind of a small amount for failure in terms of risk planning. And the best way to learn is just to go out there and to try it. Whether it's buy a sticker on Ton or, no, but for real, I mean, we're sitting here and we're talking about, we're working on the forefront of DeFi. We've built kind of the first on-chain ramp that lets you buy, a token directly on-chain. You couldn't do that before with fiat. It's like messy and cumbersome and really complicated. And, so just go out there and try what we've kind of built, and that's the way you're going to learn. And that's the way you're going to, stay ahead of the curve, because the curve is just going super fast. And if you're not trying today what's at the forefront, you're going to be behind next week.
Yeah. And if you're going to try some of these new protocols or dApps on chain, then someone has to build them. So I think my advice from a developer perspective would be keep innovating. We can see we have a great grant program. I'm shilling that again, and we get a lot of applications come in. But there might be, you can fork Aave, you can fork Compound, you can fork Uniswap, and you can bring it over. But I'd love to see something nascent, something unique. We've seen how well that's done recently. I don't know if there's any perpetual traders in the crowd, but if you've used something like GMX in the past or something like Gains Network, then you could see the leap forward, what Hyperliquid did and how they took most of the USDC from Arbitrum, because the user experience was so good. They did something very unique. Slippage was so low, and if you can build something like that's really unique, we're in a really good position as EVM developers because there's so many standards out there, and Contracts can just be deployed on any EVM chain. So yeah, my advice would be something new, something innovative, and don't be scared to change the standards or write your own.
I think I'll speak to like the retails here. So the general idea is that like if you're in this industry and you're kind of like deploying capital, just make sure you take risk, take a lot of risk early on, and take very little risk near the end. People end up doing the complete opposite and get completely wrecked, basically. So that's like very important, actually. Even if you're building, take a lot of risk at the start and then take less risk at the end. Similarly, if you're investing.
I'm not sure I should say give some advice. I would say that I'm here to looking for the corporation. So I see many, OG face, many, some of my friends here who are very experienced in the industry. They have amazing product. I do know about their journey. So I'm here to open the corporation opportunities more than giving any advice. And let's discuss on how to grow together. Yeah, thank you.
I think for me, one biggest advice I will give is be uncomfortable, right? Because we have to always constantly challenge ourselves so that we can improve. Like if you feel like you're too comfortable, then probably something is not right. So I don't know like what you guys think, but this is at least how I feel, right? So with that, I'd like to wrap up today's panel, and I really appreciate all the panelists' time today. I hope all of you had gained some valuable insights onto like building on chain, how different systems work, how important education is and stuff like that. So really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you all sponsors and MPOS for hosting this. Thank you.